automatic.
What up, YouTube? It's fully automatic, and I have for you 2K's problems from the point of view of a dev, and why every 2K game ever produced will have errors that will never be fixed. I'll briefly talk about an issue I've heard and why I think as a programmer that issue exists, as well as possible solutions to that issue. Some issues have been fixed or addressed in some manner, like nerfing or buffing a certain element of the game. For some complaints, you don't need to be a programmer to figure it out, like a lot of people know what's going on without being a dev. However, there are things that I don't hear people talking about that will affect the game. I just want to shed some light on this situation and spread some knowledge throughout the 2K community. But on the other hand, I think a good way to fix all of this stress and all of these complaints is for 2K, the company, to be more transparent and not pretend these problems don't exist. Instead of ignoring problems that are obviously present in the game, they should just talk about them and be honest. I think it would go a long way into building trust up again with the community. Before we go any further, you guys should know that I'm not a game dev. I'm a full stack developer. So basically I deal with web technologies. I develop in JavaScript. There's technical things that I found out about the game while doing research for this video, such as their game engine called EcoMotion was introduced in 2K14, which was the launch game for the PS4. They haven't given it out for anyone to develop on, so that's something they own and I'm guessing they're never going to give away. There's other technical details that I don't think is important for this video, so we'll just skip over those. Remember, everything's conjecture. I'm just trying to figure it out based on what I know about development in general. So without further ado, let's get into it. One issue I kept hearing about was that fades were way too overpowered. They go in too much, you can't stop them, they're too OP, they're taking too long to fix it. To figure this issue out, you don't need to be a software engineer. They totally did this on purpose. Have you ever actually tried to pick and roll in the 2s or even the 3s on a team that knows how to play defense? You can't get your shot off unless you fade. So I think it was by design. But since dunks are so OP, I don't think they accounted for the fact that people would just abandon pick and roll and just play ISO. So there's no help defender, there's no one to play sides with. So all you have is some guy running back and forth, shooting off a fade. You can't stop it. But again, I think it was by design. They meant that to happen. I'm not going to spend too much time on why the fades were so OP in the first place. But an important thing to know are the possible reasons that it took so long for them to fix it. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. I know things are different now with Mike Wang. He can adjust fades as a hotfix. That leads me to believe that it wasn't such an easy fix. What we see as players playing basketball is probably just an illusion. It looks as though we have guys on the court playing basketball, shooting, passing, dribbling, etc. But probably, most likely, those are different systems that are just made to look like one. The ball is probably its own entity, the player his own entity, the background its own entity. So what you would have is like this system that you would have to delve into to fix fading shots. So once you patch or you do something with the fade, then you might have to do something with the player, then you might have to do something with the background, then you might have to do something with the environment. And all this during a pandemic where they're probably not in an office space but at home. And I'm not trying to let 2K off the hook because they're a billion-dollar company and they could overcome some of these issues, but it is what it is. What I'm trying to get across is a small fix might not actually be a small fix. A similar situation happened in Apex Legends with muzzle flash. It seemed like an easy fix, but as it turned out, it wasn't. Some cred has to be given to the Apex Legends team because they were transparent about the issue and they let us know that a fix would take longer because it was harder to fix than we thought it would be. I think 2K can help themselves out by just being transparent with the community. If something is a huge fix, just admit it. Another complaint I hear a lot about in NBA 2K21 are about demigods and their presence in the game. This one has nothing to do with the way they built the game. They purposely did it. They know it's in the game, and I have a feeling I know why. You know, the demigod power forwards that have the minimum weight. I heard of some builds having 100 plus badges. They can do it all. Apart from the fact that I've heard many people ask for demigod builds to be in the game, that isn't the reason they're in the game. History has shown that video games modeled after professional sports can be influenced by the athletes that participate in those sports. You can look it up on the internet, but the earliest and first thing comes to mind is NHL 94. There was a player that was overpowered, and it was because of that player's relationship with one of the devs or something like that. But you can look it up. NHL 94. Dame Dollar, that's the cover athlete for 2K21 on current gen, he wanted the 6'8" point guards back in the game. And what did 2K do? They put it back in the game. And I think that's exactly what happened this time. The cover athlete is who? Zion Williamson. How tall is Zion Williamson? 6'7". What position does Zion play? Power forward. He isn't 210, but trust me, that's why it's in the game. Just look up the development of NBA Jam and Michael Jordan. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I don't have actual proof of it, but I'd be shocked if it was anything else. We looked at fades, we looked at demigod builds, but those aren't game-breaking problems. We're going to look at a couple of things that have huge implications for the gameplay of 2K21 on next gen. Another NBA 2K21 next gen complaint I've been hearing a lot about were the complete lack of updates. Now, it takes resources to update games. Labor in terms of the developers actually making the game, and fixed costs such as equipment and other things like that, but we won't get into those things. And resources costs money. I have no idea how they put aside funds for game updates, but we all know that video games all have budgets, and it's possible they have to pick and choose what they spend that budget on, including what they update, when, and how often. Since they have to pick and choose what to update, they're going to prioritize things that need to be updated. There's a way to do this, and I'll go into it a little bit deeper later on. But for now, let's just say anything that takes away from Take-Two Interactive's profit margins will be updated immediately, like any VC or rep method exploit, while smaller issues won't. So one reason for the lack of updates is because they have to pick and choose what to update. Another thing to remember is they have deadlines and schedules, and they're already probably working on NBA 2K22. So having a lot of work to do would mean there's a delay in updates. You don't have to be a programmer to figure that one out. Now, this is something I've heard other YouTubers talk about, so I think this is widely known within the community. Lastly, and probably most importantly, of the number of complaints I hear about NBA 2K21 on next gen, I hear about probably the most important one is about error codes. If you listen to the community, there are many errors that plague NBA 2K21. One of the most important ones early on was the park lag. It made the game unplayable in certain camera views. Game crashes that give you L's on your record regardless of the fact that you had nothing to do with it. The file corrupted notification error that you get every time you start your PS5 and have NBA 2K21 installed at the same time. There were plenty more, but I don't have enough time to go through each and every one of them, so let's continue. From a developer's point of view, there are ways to systematically fix errors. This logic also applies to updates and whether or not they're developed and published, as I spoke about earlier. I know very little about their development methodology, but I can guarantee you that there's probably some system in place where they do exactly as I say that they probably do. and that is the prioritization of bug fixes. The way this is done is by putting bugs in tier levels. You have high priority bugs, you have low priority bugs. High priority bugs, bugs that need to be fixed ASAP, are bugs that interrupt profit flow. Like VC glitches, if those are found, they'll patch them immediately. Other high priority bugs are bugs that would make the game unplayable for everybody. An example of a high priority bug, in my opinion, was the lag in the park. And I guarantee you in testing they knew it was there, but they chose not to fix it for as long as they did. I think on their side, they just didn't see it as a high priority bug, probably because of the size of the game, but we'll get into that later. So you have high priority bugs, but what's a low priority bug? A low priority bug would be a typo or a miscalculation of some statistic that they provide to us. Have you ever gone into the rec center and seen the amount of steals per game you have or your shooting percentage? That's either a typo or a miscalculation, or even something worse, I don't know, but that's the example of a low priority bug. So a low priority bug, you can say, doesn't affect the game's playability. It may just give you some wrong, non-vital information. I would even say the file corrupted notification bug is a low priority because it doesn't affect the playability of the game in that your file isn't actually corrupted. It's a typo or some kind of miscalculation that they've made. And remember, just because the problem looks small doesn't mean that they're not going to have to dig through lines and lines of code just to fix it. So you can say that the fix just doesn't justify the cost of fixing it in terms of labor and putting resources towards fixing a particular bug. And of course, I have no idea if this is true or not, but I'm just trying to give you some insight into how that may be true. So basically, there are bugs that they must fix and bugs that they can live with. And because of the size of the app that is NBA 2K21 on next gen, as well as the game's life cycle, as in the game's only around for 1 year, I could guarantee you that every 2K21 next gen, current gen, any generation of 2K21 basketball game that's ever released will have errors in it that will never be fixed. It'll just be a matter of living with the ones that aren't and hoping that some of them do get fixed. Think of 2K as a house. Your house is built and it functions well. It keeps the environment at bay. The electricity flows, the water pumps, the heat is generated, you're comfy. 2K21 also functions. You play basketball with your friends, it has different game modes, it works every time you boot it up. You're able to make in-game progress, it works. Now look at your house. If you took a very close look, there are things that you need to fix but are living with. Maybe your door squeaks, maybe there's a blemish on the wall, maybe a floor panel is loose, but it's always there because you can live with it. It's not a high priority fix. It's the same way for 2K21. Some fixes are just higher priority than others. Now, this isn't me trying to excuse 2K for what they've done in the past and continue to do, such as microtransactions. I'm just trying to bring light to the community so you understand what's going on. I think 2K just needs to be more transparent when they're dealing with issues and not pretend with their silence that they don't exist. I think a company that big can do a way better job. I would like to hear comments on this video because it's taken me a lot of time to do. If you liked it, give me a like. If you didn't, don't, or even give me a dislike, I don't know. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. I'm fully automatic. I'm out. Peace.